Well, hello there, and welcome to this, the second of this year's webinar series. And today, me and Rob will be talking to you about putting the customer at the heart of your product roadmap, an OKR dashboard. For those who've joined us these things before, we're going to talk about half an hour. We will be taking questions at the end, so do feel free to send them in. And of course, everyone receives a link to this if you want to watch it in your own time or come back to us with any questions or forward it on you. Please feel free. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of roadmaps and OKRs, for those who've not joined us before, P2, as you may know, is the world-leading transformation consultancy who really focusing on how we can help improve, control, and deliver clients' digital transformation activity. We focus on a whole range of areas from PMOs, business analytics, testing, scaled agile. And today we're really focusing in what we think of as our digital transformation heartland. And that's really how do you improve an organization's digital agility by focusing on their three core competencies of analytics, agile, and automation. And today's topic is right at the heart of that, because the question is how on earth do you understand what customer value means? How on earth do you track it? How on earth do you put it at the heart of all of your transformation? And I'm luckily joined by a real expert in that, Rob Fowler. And for those who've not come across Rob before, Rob joined us quite recently to head up our scaled agile activity. I'm on the left there as Director of Consulting. And let me hand across to Rob, who will introduce yourself, Rob.
Hi, Rob Fowler. So I'm the head of the P2 Scaling Agile practice here. Adam and I have been working together to create a webinar series, which we're really excited to. Well, this is the second in that series.
Second, yes, absolutely.
And we've got several more to come.
Yep.
I've worked in product management, product ownership, and as you can see on the screen there, I'm also SAFe certified. This is an area I'm really passionate about, and I'm really excited to talk with you folks today.
And a really important area, I mean, a really critical area actually, is that an interesting aspect is that it tends to get missed when people talk about agile and particularly scaled agile. People talk about the ceremonies, people talk about the kind of the machinery and the kind of PI planning events, and they miss what is the most important and probably the hardest bit, which is actually defining what you're going to actually change.
You know, I really liked the way you put it earlier, you know, the customer's at the heart of everything. And that's absolutely right, Adam.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, what's wrong? What do we need to change about what's going on?
Good question. So quite often, I'm sure you've seen this yourself. I'm sure many of the people watching have seen this themselves as well. The focus of product development is really quite often on establishing or building this ideal product. Right? They want this perfect thing. They want to polish it, shine everything just so. And so they look at this. How do they create the demand? They look at this product that they have right now, its existing state, and they look at that delta between the way it is and this vision of this idealized product. Right? They then create some product requirements around it, and then they have a look at customer needs. They kind of think about how will this impact the customer, as opposed to how can we really help the customer achieve more, resolve their pains and problems.
So they start from an idealized position of what they think the right answer is, rather than starting from the customer's point of view.
In fact, if you look on the screen here, I've kind of drawn this so that it shows the customer, the relationship that these organizations have with the customer. It's kind of quite precariously balanced there, Adam. If these organizations don't figure out how to speak to their customers, how to solve for their customers, this is going to tip. This is going to bring down many organizations.
Okay. So what's the right answer? What should they be doing?
First of all, we want to ensure development is focused on achieving business strategic objectives. So we build, instead of having that triangle precariously poised as it was, we're now establishing a solid foundation, business strategy. We're ensuring we're aligning what we're going to be doing around what's in the space that we're playing. What do our customers need? What does our market need? How can we help? So we look at our customers, we look at the users. We try to understand, to identify where their pains and problems are. These things that we can, through our system, through our services, through through our products, the things that we can help make better for them, take their pains away at them. All right. So we don't want perfect. Yeah. We don't want shine. We don't want polish. All right. What we really want to achieve is a product solution that is good enough to solve the pains and the problems of our customers, and then we move on to their next most important pain or problem.
Okay. Business strategy means an awful lot of things to an awful lot of people. In the world of Agile and Scaled Agile, often the answer around business strategy is this thing called OKR.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk a little bit for us about what do we mean when we say OKR? Where does it come from?
Oh, absolutely. But perhaps we can really quickly just start by looking at where do we begin in our journey here, right? So as you mentioned, we will be looking at OKRs, objectives and key results. We'll be looking at how you can use OKRs to help you define and map out the elements of your product roadmap.
Yep.
We're going to look at some examples of product roadmaps. And finally, we're going to look at building a dashboard. If you want to move on to the next slide, we'll get right into the OKRs here. So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, so okay, it's quite an interesting history, which I wasn't actually aware of when we started talking to you. So do you want to share a bit about the histories of OKR and actually how far back it actually goes?
Yeah, it's really laid down a lot of tread on the road here, hasn't it? Back in the 1950s, Peter Drucker came up with his framework, management by objectives.
Yep. Peter
worked with Andy Grove. Andy went to become one of the founders of Intel. Andy took the MBO, the management by objectives framework, and further refined it for Intel, establishing his internal INBO, where John Doerr worked with Andy, learned about MBOs. John further refined this concept, finally coming up with what we love and know and love today, objectives and key results. John's book, Measure What Matters, it's absolutely fascinating, right? Measure what matters. Everything should be measured. And we'll see why that matters in a couple of minutes. But objectives, what are objectives? Objectives are the outcomes that we need to achieve for our customers and for the business. Key results, this is about how do we know? How do we know that this thing that we said we want to achieve, this outcome we said we want to achieve, how do we know that we've done it? Is it good enough for someone to sit in a demo and say, perfect, that's exactly where we were going, job done? No, we want to remove the subjective. We want to ensure that when you look at your key results, you can point to data, you can point to something real and say, that shows that we achieved this result.
Okay. So can you make it a bit realer for us? What are we going to look at some examples?
Yeah, of course. So actually, here's one I made earlier. So we have a simple example, objective, and key results statement here. I've used it to try and just draw out some of the key elements. First of all, for the objective needs to be something, it needs to be a powerful, aligning statement. It needs to be something that's really simple and easy for people to understand. So I say this to you, British residents can book vaccination appointments online. You know what I'm talking about. The outcome is clear in your head. I then identify, well, how do we know we've achieved our desired outcome, Adam? We get our key results. We set a date. We want to block this in. We don't want to be running forever and ever and ever towards chasing this objective. We want a very clear timeline. We're going to achieve by this date the first of our key results. A subset of the population is invited to take up this booking system. Now, why does this subset matter? Because we're validating. We're getting feedback from our customers. We're ensuring that we're actually taking the right approach, doing the right thing, and we're doing this in a way that is less impactful, less expensive on the organization. Okay. Right? So our second key result here, this is really speaking about quality, right? We want to ensure that the failure rate is less than 5% for the system we're building. Well, how do we do that? Well, we're going to use a tool called leading indicators. Okay. So if you think back to the first of the key results there, you're sending out these invitations. You're then getting uptake from these invitations. People are then booking online, creating their vaccination appointment booking. What we're going to do is invite people to use a phone number or an email address if they have problems with this process, so they can share that with us. We get really early access. You know, we're not going to roll out all 10,000 on day one. What we're going to do is we're going to roll out small incremental releases to small incremental subsets of our pilot population, and we're going to see how things are going. We're going to get that feedback. We're going to be able to use that data to make adjustments, to make twists as we go.
Okay, and I mean, leading indicators are a really interesting concept. Can you give us an example of a leading versus a lagging indicator? That's another phrase.
Sure, great question. Absolutely. Leading indicators, as I just explained to you here, these are the things that allow you to see things as they're coming before you get too far down the line, before you've invested too much money in building a solution. Lagging indicators come after you've built your solution. So you put in 6 months worth of development time, you've built the system, you've set it out to the market, and then you wait and see how many people take it up, how many people use it, how many customers have actually stayed with us. Right? The problem with lagging indicators, Adam, is by the time you get the insights, by the time you get the feedback, it's too late to do anything about it.
It's the opposite of the sort of pace you're trying to get everyone back.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, so think about that difference, Adam, between as you're developing, you're getting this feedback, you're able to twist your approach slightly, make these small, incremental, and inexpensive adjustments to achieving the outcome, versus waiting until the end. When you wait till the end, you may end up building something that no one actually needs. And then all the work, all the time, all the effort, all the money that went into that thing is waste. This approach allows us to avoid that waste, significantly minimize the financial impact.
And let me ask you about stretch goals, because we hear a lot about stretch goals. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to, by choosing the KR, are we trying to choose something that really pushes us? Are we trying to choose something that is achievable? How are you kind of turning the dial on that?
Good question. The objective should be something that isn't easy to achieve.
Sure.
All right. There's a lot of work goes into creating a really good. This looks simple. The language reads really quite easy.
Yeah.
But there's a heck of a lot of work that goes into creating an OKR. Okay. To make it meaningful. To justify that, the thing that you're creating your OKR for, it really should be challenging. It really should push the envelope. You don't need an OKR, Adam, if you're just going to go change the layout of a form. All right, that's quite simple maintenance or possibly a technical debt piece.
Sure.
But if you're implementing a new data pipeline, you're going to want an OKR.
Cool. So actually, stretch is quite a good thing in this case. You're trying to put something that pushes the organisation out of its comfort zone.
Absolutely.
So look, we've got our OKR. We've got our kind of strategy. We kind of know what our objectives and our key results are. Where are we going next?
Our roadmap. Each of the objectives and the key results build up towards establishing a roadmap, helping us to map out where we as an organization are going, where our product is going. So these roadmaps work in scaled and non-scaled agile environments. Yeah. There are different types of roadmaps, Adam. You have the one at the bottom here. This looks quite lovely. They've encapsulated a lot of information through color coding. Okay. They have this is what you call a now to the future. Sorry, now to the future or near to far type of roadmap. Okay. Right. They have said these are the things we're going to achieve, and as we move forward with less certainty, these are the things that we believe we're most likely to achieve over time. Okay. Now, as manual, someone spent some time making that look really pretty. Yep. Doing all of the encoding, yep. Putting those lovely curves in. It looks lovely. A great poster, for example. But the other examples we have here, these are automated. Okay. These are built using a tool system which supports automatically generating a roadmap from the inputs. Okay. All right. So What's the benefit of that? Well, let's say we're working together on some initiative and you're my stakeholder and you come to me and say, hey, Rob, we've had this big change happen over in this part of our market. It's a great opportunity. We really need to strike now. So we need you to stop what you're currently working on and shift people to this side. Great, that's a business decision. It's made from a strategic perspective, right? So we create our OKR for this new opportunity.
Yep.
We create our roadmap items, and in our automatic roadmap, we're able to see when we insert this on this point of the roadmap, what the impact is on the rest of the roadmap. So this allows us to actually do a bit of fine tuning.
Okay.
So Adam, do we really need to start it now? What's the time criticality factor here? Is this something we could maybe start in 3 weeks instead of next week? Because if we start it in 3 weeks, we can finish this thing off. So we have that kind of a discussion about the impacts of adding this new thing in, rather than simply saying, yeah, all right, let's do it and forget about all the effort we've already put in.
And I think it's a really important point to make that the product roadmap is a business engagement tool.
Absolutely.
How do you talk to your business and how do you talk to your customers about what's going to happen to them? So to do that, it has to be written in business language.
Absolutely.
It has to be visually appealing. Actually, it has to be something that people want to look at, engage with, and feel that they can instantly see a story from it. One of my big problems is when you see a roadmap that is purely a plan. Actually, if someone's clearly taken a detailed plan and just taken up a level, it's absolutely not that.
No, not at all. Not at all. It should be something engaging. It should be something that invites conversations,
Yeah.
invites discussions.
Yeah. Okay. Great stuff.
And of course leads to alignment. We want our customers to really get where we're going.
Be excited about it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Excitement is a key thing you're trying to get out of those roadmaps.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So look, we talked a little bit about OKRs.
Yep.
Process of kind of getting some OKRs and actually how they kind of what is defined the business strategy and what good looks like.
Yeah.
Talked a little bit about the product roadmap, the kind of business focused view that says what's the journey we're going to go and what's going to change to deliver those OKRs. All well and good, we're ready to go. What are you using then once you're going to kind of keep yourself aligned, keep yourself motivated to know that you're doing the right thing? What happens?
Well, the next thing would be creating a dashboard view. But if I may, before we get into the dashboards, I thought it would be worth having a little bit of a discussion about how things get onto our product roadmap.
Absolutely, great stuff. Okay.
So this is a visualization, if you will, of a demand management process. You get lots of ideas coming in at the top of your funnel. These ideas come from all sources, right? You get ideas from your customers and your users. You get ideas from people within the organization. You get ideas from the development team. All of these ideas come in, and we need to do something with these ideas. Now, what you've probably seen, I know I myself have seen this a lot, is when our hopper is so full of unvalidated ideas, people kind of get stuck not really knowing what to do. Okay, right? So what do? We use some design thinking practices to validate the ideas. Right? We validate the ideas by looking at, first of all, is this idea actually a problem? Is it a problem or is it a pain for our customers, for our users, for our system?
Okay.
Right? Once we've validated that it is actually a problem, then want to look at, is this a problem that we really care about, that we want to address, that we want to resolve? Because not all problems are going to be worth us as an organization fixing, resolving those problems. We have this customer view. We want to make sure the problems that we solve are the problems and the pains for our customers in their market segment that we as an organization are serving. Right? So how do you do that? How do you validate that? You look at, is this what is the real problem here? Right? You don't just take the statement that was provided on that idea card from the customer or the internal person or the user. You actually look at it a bit deeper. You think about what's the actual problem that this thing is speaking to. Right, so there are a number of methods that you can use, such as the 5 whys analysis, this sort of thing, which allows you to dig down into what's the real problem here. Okay. You then create your problem statement. Right? Once you've got a problem statement, you then start to think about how can we solve this problem in a way that's meaningful, that's valuable for our customers. So this is looking at solutions. We then go through a process of validating our potential solutions. So a nice, lovely brainstorming session where you list off 10 or whatever X number of possible approaches to solving this problem. And then for each approach, you want to look at 3 questions. Question number 1, is it viable? Right? Does it make sense for us to do this? Question number 2, feasibility. Can we do this thing? And question number 3, desirability. Do our customers, do our users want this problem solved in the way that we're proposing with this solution? Okay, so this isn't a 10-minute session, Adam. This is a series of sessions. Right? This is using a number of tools to help us manage the process effectively. You're familiar with the expression, obviously, slow down to speed up, right? This allows us to slow down the discovery process of figuring out how we're going to solve that solution, so that when we finally build the right solution and build it in the right way, we're adding real meaningful value to the organization. So these things come out at the bottom as roadmap ready. Okay. I did skip over the thing we talked about a minute ago, the OKRs, right? You turn that solution using a hypothesis statement into an OKR. Okay. My hypothesis is I can solve this problem if I do X, Y, Z. How am I going to know the problem solved? I'm going to create these measures. I'm going to look at metrics that are going to allow me to see that the problem is no longer a problem. A classic example of that is a change to a user interface or a user experience change is often triggered because customers are shouting that this is painful, this is hard to do, this is hard to work with. Right? If you remember back to when we were talking about leading indicators, one of the leading indicators that you might look at to ensure your changes, incremental changes, are actually having the desired effect is by looking at the data of how many people are calling customer support or how many people are raising customer support tickets. Categorizing the data that comes in from that and seeing, does this show us that we're trending downwards? We're getting fewer and fewer calls, fewer and fewer problems are being expressed as a result of this. So we've followed this pattern. We've built up our picture from our problem statement, our objectives and key results. We've identified the features. We have created epic statements around the features. We have built the user stories. We have begun the process of incrementally delivering value, getting that feedback, delivering against the results. And we go to the next slide, we can talk about the dashboard. Right? The dashboard is where we can see how well we're doing against that. Brilliant. Right? So, look, we have here, sorry guys. We have here an example OKR where we've identified a number of enablers and a number of features for this OKR. So each of these features and enablers is going to have that epic statement. Okay. We're then going to have broken that down into these user stories. Right? We get a score, we get a value, which allows us to represent on, if you can pop the mouse over top of the dashboard there. That's right. If you can go to the one on the left first. Now you see we've got here these visualizations. Think about each of those indicators as being the enabler or the feature, and what proportion of this enabler or feature we have delivered. Okay. Same with the thing over there on the right. We've got some categorizations. Right? We've broken things down into features, enablers, capabilities. We are able to see sprint by sprint or increment by increment how well we're doing at delivering on this OKR. So at the end of a sprint, Scrum Masters might come and present. If we're looking at a manually created one, the Scrum Masters might come and present on some big visualized board. For this sprint, we have delivered X percentage of this OKR, of these results on this objective, and X percentage on these results of this objective. Okay. Manual. Takes time, takes a lot of effort, right? Why use manual though? The one on the right there is automated. I believe that's, yeah, that is Jira. So that's the Atlassian tool chain, where we're actually extracting the data automatically from the stories as they're delivered. It's using the system in behind which calculates this, and it's presenting those sliders. So you can see on the sliders on the right-hand side there, it's showing how far we're getting towards achieving the results.
And if you properly set up your data capture, your Kanban, like this is just automatic. This just falls out of good agile practices at the Kanban team level.
Absolutely. It requires, absolutely requires that the teams are properly using their Kanbans, properly using the data capturing abilities in the tooling system they're using. Again, manual or automated, both work, both have different challenges, different cost profiles. You have to do it though. You have to capture the data in order to allow a meaningful dashboard to be created.
Great. So look, what we talk about? We talk about OKRs, we talk about business strategy, we talk about actually realizing those in a product roadmap, which is the customer actually at the heart of the change you're looking to take your product through. We've talked about dashboards that allow you to then track how are you doing, and actually, obviously, adapt your process. Because of course, the whole thing about agile is actually being able to adapt when the data tells you that something is wrong, or when the data tells you that that product isn't delivering the value that you absolutely expect it to do. I mean, I personally, when I've seen this work in client side, it is really quite revelationary, actually, and the insight it gives both the senior teams and the people on the ground is really quite fundamental. I mean, you know, there's the key four benefits, but ultimately it's about people feeling closer to the client, people feeling closer to the product, and what good looks like for that product.
Yeah.
It has such a positive impact. Look, we're running a little bit short on time, but I do want to throw one question to you that's come in, which is kind of where do you start? I want to do this. How do I do it?
That's a great question. Where do you start? And we've seen this time after time after time when working with clients. So when you start, you got to start by understanding two things. You got to understand the area that you're working in, and you got to understand your clients, who they are, who are your customers, who are your users. If you don't, you're kind of building a field of dreams, if you will. Okay. So there's some tools that you can use to help you get started. This really jumpstarts this whole process for you. The first one is customer profiles.
Yes.
Right? Think about who your customers are and create profiles for them so that you're not going on guesswork, you're going on actual data. I love data. I really believe data will help you solve any problem. The next one is the value proposition. So as you're familiarizing yourself with those customers in the context of the market segment that we have chosen to work in, we then start to look at what are the pains, what are the problems that these folks are having, which ones are our system, our product, or our service currently resolving, where are the gaps? As you identify those gaps, that begins to give you the items that will make their way onto your innovation product roadmap.
Great stuff. Well, that's where you start, and hopefully where you end is OKR's products and a really clean dashboard, and ultimately very, very, very happy customers. Well, look, thanks so much, Rob, for joining us. As Rob mentioned at the beginning, we've got a whole range of exciting webinars coming up. So the next one we're looking at is automation, and actually how you can use many of the easily available tools out there to help automate your own processes, your own activity. You know, automation is not just what big businesses do anymore. Everyone can have access to it. We're looking at how you measure digital agility, 24th of June, and then we're looking at DevOps, which is a really fascinating area out in July. So please do sign up for those webinars. Please do join us for that. As mentioned, we'll be sending this out to everyone who's attended. Please do, if you want to, get in contact with myself and Rob. We obviously like to chat about this all the time. So all that remains is for me and Rob to wish you a very, very good afternoon.
Thank you very much for joining us, guys.
Cheers. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.